Naphtali. It's great to see you again.
Hey.
So one thing I wanted to talk about was, you've been working in learning for many years now across all sorts of organizations. And we're in a moment right now where, with all of the recent events, between the pandemic, a civil movement, economic recession, it really is unprecedented times. And I think that one of the challenges sometimes that folks like yourself who are a leader of learning face is, how do you deal with, or how do you manage the good intentions that a company or executives might have in rushing to deliver training to solve a problem or to meet a current challenge? And I'd love to hear your thoughts around, whether it's diversity training, whether it's remote leadership or other types of training that companies might be thinking about deploying. What are some of the gotchas or, the things that they have to be careful about as they think about deploying training to meet these challenges? And maybe ways that you would want to help shift their thinking about the role learning really can play to be much more impactful, right? Impact is one of the key themes that you have around learning. So would love to hear some of your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is watching out for a couple pitfalls. One of those pitfalls is the flavor of the month pitfall, where it's like, we need to do diversity training or we need to do unconscious bias training because there's, racism happening in the world. And that being the catalyst for learning versus what I'd like to tell my leaders, what conversations are we not having that we should be having that are impacting our performance, that are impacting our organization? And if that does match up with what's going on, then let's lean into that. If it doesn't, let's not deprioritize those conversations, because those conversations are ultimately connected to some of that flavor of the month stuff that we do need to focus on, but we may need to address some other things first and then lead to that other conversation. So we try to focus on, or what I try to focus on is, what are those conversations that we need to have? Another pitfall I think about is not allowing things to bake. So this idea of like, hey, I'm gathering all these ingredients, let's just throw it out there and let people kind of tackle it and have conversations around it and do some training around it, versus like, let's make sure we have all the ingredients necessary to bake the cake that we want. And then let's put that thing in the oven and let it bake. And let's have those conversations on an ongoing basis. Let's have these trainings that are structured to allow us to make real change happen. And let's not just do something one time. What I like to try to do is have our leaders and teams go on a journey and go on that journey with them and lay out what are the different milestones along that journey, or what are the different steps. And then specifically, what's the first domino that we need to push over? And sometimes I need to encourage leaders to be the first domino and really move those things forward so that we're having the right conversations at the right time.
I love that, especially this idea of moving away from one and done and really using the moment, right? There is a moment that's catalyzing thinking or attention around it, but using that as a way to forward this idea that it's actually a journey, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge that a lot of, leaders or L&D leaders might have, which is, how do you balance this sometimes desire, and a well-intentioned desire from the organization to deliver quickly, right? To address the challenge in front of you, to feel like you've solved something. Yeah. But a lot of these things we're talking about are not solvable.
No.
They're certainly not solvable in one workshop, right? So
No.
how do you start to sort of forward that thinking in the organization, that commitment to a lifelong, or to a longer journey versus something that's one and done?
Well, I think what I like to try to have leaders think about is, what's your vision? What's your vision for success long term? And we look at the short term aspects. Hey, for next 3 months, what's success look like? The medium term, next 6 months, and then longer term, year plus. What is your vision for success? And then before that, I like to try to challenge leaders with 3 key questions. Where are you currently at now? Where do you want to be? And how do you think we should get you there?
Mm.
So I have them tackle those questions. Another set of questions I have them think about, especially as it relates to kind of what's going on in the moment when there's things that are happening that may be causing them to react a certain way.
Yep.
There's 3 questions I encourage them to think about. Number 1, what's on your heart?
Mm.
What are the things that you're grappling with as a leader? The second is, what are you learning from all of this? And then the third is, what are you doing or what are you not doing? And just let them grapple with that, because that can lead us to having the right strategic conversations to move their business and their function forward in a way that's going to get them to the vision of success that they have for themselves and for their teams.
Well, as an organization centered on coaching at Sounding Board, I love that your approach starts with questions, right? That for us, that's sort of the heart of coaching. Is it's actually taking that pause and questioning and bringing the right questions
Yes.
forward is what is actually going to deepen the thought, the thinking around, and peel that onion, right? Just one layer forward about what they actually really need versus trying to rush right into a solution. What's the impact that approach has had?
Well, number 1, it creates deeper trust with myself and the leader. And it allows me for greater influence with those leaders, to where now I'm not fighting for a seat at the table. I'm just pulling up my chair now, because they've already set it up for me to sit next to them and look at what's going on and try to make an impact with them. So that's 1, it really builds trust. Secondly, it spurs innovation and creativity, because sometimes leaders and teams get so focused on the box of, hey, we got to achieve these results, this is what we're trying to go after, that they may be missing some of the bets that they may need to take that are going to advance the strategy. So I look at learning in 2 different ways. There's the business as usual, where it's like, hey, we're onboarding people, we're doing leadership development, but then there's advance the strategy moves.
Yep.
So what I try to have leaders connect to, what are those advance the strategy moves, the things that haven't been thought about yet, the things that will 5 years from now will define this period of time for us. So those are some of the ways I try to encourage them to look at things, and those are some of the results that we get. We get more a much more visionary approach. We get a much more creative and innovative approach to how we solve problems.
Well, I hope folks will be able to take some of this and try those strategies at home, and I think, or in their work, right? I think a great takeaway for me today was, what are your advanced to strategy moves, right? How
Absolutely.
do you open the conversation so that beyond thinking about the need in front of them, you help them build a vision for how that might be important now, but what's to come later and long term. And I think that's an amazing way that learning leaders can really, in that moment with that leader, help them actually feel and understand how learning can be an enabler for them in their organizations. So it's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you this morning. And thanks again, Naphtali.
Likewise. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.